The following is a video presentation by the Woodrow Wilson Center's Environmental Change and Security Program. As our notion of security evolves, the Environmental Change and Security Program asks scientists and policymakers to share their insights on a range of global challenges. In this short expert analysis, Christian Leuprecht, a professor at the Royal Military College of Canada, makes the case for the importance of demographic dynamics and their connections to conflict and security.
So those people who are familiar with the literature will know that there's been a lot of connection drawn between demographic change and security. And I should say, why first of all should we be interested in demography? And the world is undergoing demographic change at an unprecedented scale. This is the first year when more people are living in urban centers than live in rural centers. That countries are becoming ever more diverse culturally, linguistically, religiously. And so I think demographics are going to be to the 21st century what class cleavages were to the 19th century. It is the single biggest challenge for how we live together in peaceful and harmonious means in the 21st century. And demographics are interesting because for a lot of variables we don't know what the world is going to look like in 10 or 20 years. But as a result of demographic modeling, we know within a reasonable degree of accuracy where we're likely going to be, both at the level of countries, at the subnational level, at the regional level, and at the global level. And so we actually have some data with which we can work, and we can foresee some of the challenges and the problems that we're likely going to face. And so we can model what's going to happen if we take action or if we don't take action at this point in time. And so I think from a social scientific perspective, demographics are particularly interesting because it's not just about explaining ex post facto events like academics often do, but it actually does allow us to some extent to look into the future, anticipate the challenges that we're going to have. Specifically with regards to demography and security, the challenge that I see is at the subnational level. That is to say that most of the conflicts, and if we look around the world, the intractable conflicts, the violent conflicts, the conflicts that have been dragging on for decades, tend to be at the subnational level with groups in conflict. Yet much of the academic work and the way data are gathered are at the national level. And so this presents two challenges, that on the one hand we're working with a data set that doesn't entirely tell us something about the exact phenomenon that we're actually trying to study. And there's also a question about if we have propositions and hypotheses that we're testing at the national level, to what extent these results then actually hold at the subnational level. And so there's a methodological challenge here. So how do we tackle this question, for instance, of if ethnic groups, and given that ethnic groups in conflict tend to have different age structures, because just about every ethnic group tends to either age more rapidly or less rapidly, and there's this interesting phenomenon about minority populations tending to have higher fertility rates than majority populations, and why that is. And so and there's questions about, well, in terms of difference of age structure between groups in conflict, does it make a difference if they have different age structures? And if the age structure is converging or diverging, does that make a difference, A, to the onset of violence and the probability of violence? Does it make a difference in terms of the intensity of a conflict? And does it make a difference in terms of the likelihood of being able to reach an enduring, lasting, and sustainable peace agreement? And so to test these hypotheses and to ask these questions, it is difficult to do this at a large N level because we don't have the data, and a lot of the data that we have are unreliable data, might be old data, or might have been gathered under very different methodological circumstances. And so this is, I think, a classic situation where the comparative method, the case study comparative method, can really help us, where we have limited data and there's questions about the reliability of data, and where data are difficult to gather independent sort of objective data, which is why I think there's real potential here for people who work at the comparative level, at the case study level, to try to draw some of these connections as to whether age structure, differences in age structure, rates of change, to what extent those might influence conflict. And I have some of my personal hypotheses and views and evidence in that regard. You'll find some of that in the most recent Environmental Change and Security Report, Report 13, and you'll find a number of other essays there by people who also have particular views on the subject. And I think it's a subject and a field that there's lots of opportunity to till and lots of study to be done here, so a great field for people to work in.